Hello and welcome to homework walkthrough video 4, order of operations and substitution, lesson 5.03a, independent practice. Start sharing our screen. Okay, for this video, my numbers will be different, but everything else will be the same. Numbers will be different, but all of the operation signs will be in the same place. We'll use the same strategy to solve the problems, just different numbers. Question 1, evaluate the given expression when a equals 3. So first step I'm going to do is I'm going to copy down the expression a on top of 3 plus 7. So a equals 3. If a is 3, what's my answer? So I'm going to erase a and put 3 here. Okay. Now that I just have numbers, let's do some math. I don't know what to do first. Do I do 3 over 3, which means 3 divided by 3? So do I do the divide first or the plus first? I'm going to write our map here, our PEMDAS map. This tells us what to do first. Looks like D for divide becomes before the A. A for add. So we divide first. So 3 divided by 3. What is that? My brain is too tired from staying organized, so here's our calculator. It is 1. Now I have, instead of 3 divided by 3, I have 1 plus 7. What is 1 plus 7? Plus 7, that is 8. Now again, your numbers are different, but the steps are very, very similar. Question 2. All right, my first step for this question, I am going to copy the expression exactly how it is. First, what does it mean when there is a letter right next to a number? Nice. It means you are multiplying. So 3 over 2c is the same as 3 over 2 times c. Now, let's replace this letter with the number the problem tells us to replace it with. If c is 16, what's my answer? Now that I just have numbers, let's do some math. Now, your numbers will be different than my numbers, but they will be almost the same. And everything else will be almost the same. So you can use similar steps to solve your question. I have negative 12 minus 3 over 2 times 16. 3 over 2, that's the same as saying 3 divided by 2. So let's read this again. Negative 12 minus 3 divided by 2 times 16. What do I do first? Let's write our map. Our PEMDAS map. PEMDAS. Okay, I don't see any parentheses. I don't see any exponents. I do see some multiplying and dividing. But what comes first? Oh, the divide is first in this number sentence. So let's divide first. 3 divided by 2. What are you? 1.5. So let's rewrite this. Negative 12 minus, instead of 3 over 2, 1.5 times 16. So now I have a minus sign and a times sign. What do I do first, the minus or the multiply? Multiply, because M for multiply comes before the S for subtract. So let's multiply. 1.5 times 16. 1.5 times 16. 24. So I have negative 12 minus, instead of 1.5 times 16, I have 24. Now, I type in my calculator, 12, negative 12, minus 24. If you lose 12 of something and then you lose 24 of something, how much have you lost in total? You have lost 36 things. If you subtract from a negative, your answer gets more negative. Negative 36. Your numbers will be different, but the problem will be very similar. Checking to see. Okay, good. I still have sound. Question 3. All right, for this question, my first step, I'm going to copy the expression down exactly how it is. X squared plus y. Okay. What does it mean when there is a number right next to a letter? Nice. It means times. So I'm going to put a multiplication dot there. Okay. Now I'm going to replace all the letters with the numbers that this tells me to. X is supposed to be negative 3, and y is supposed to be 10. What is my answer if x is negative 3 and y is 10? Let's find out. Erase x, negative 3 there. Erase y, put 10 there. Again, your numbers are different, but we can solve this in a very similar way. Here, I see a multiply, I see an exponent, and I see a plus. But what do I do first? Let's write down our map, our PEMDAS map. PEMDAS. I don't see any parentheses, so I can skip this step. Awesome. I do see exponents. So let's take care of those exponents. Negative 3 to the power of 2. This does not mean negative 3 times 2. That is not what that means. Exponents tell us how many big numbers there are. So negative 3 to the power of 2 means negative 3 times 3. What is negative 3? What is negative 3 times negative 3? It is 9, positive 9. Let's rewrite this expression. So negative 2 times 9 plus 10. I see so we just did exponents, no more exponents. Now multiply, divide. Do I see any multiplying and dividing? I do. I also see an addition. Multiply comes before addition in PEMDAS. So we do multiplying first. What is negative 2 times 9? Negative 18. Negative 18 plus 10. Instead of negative 2 times 9, I write negative 18, then plus 10. I am $18 in debt, and I make $10. I'm still not out of debt, but how much money do I owe? 8. Negative 8. Your numbers for your question will be different, but they will be very similar. Very similar. So I think you can use similar steps to solve your question as I did with my question. Now, let's do number 4. First, I'm going to write down the expression exactly how I see it. Exactly how I see it. Okay, ooh, tough. What does it mean when there is a number right next to a letter in math? Nice, it means we multiply. What does it mean when there is a number right next to a parentheses? It means we multiply. So here I have y minus 12 times x plus 6 times whatever x minus 11 is. Now, let's replace these letters with the number that it tells us to. What is my answer if x is -6 and y is -9? So let's replace the y with -9. And let's replace both x's with -6. Here is now -6. I have now -9 minus 12 times -6 plus 6 times whatever -6 minus 11 is. But what do I do first? Thank goodness I have this map. Das. Okay. First is parentheses. Do you see any parentheses? Yes, you do see some parentheses right here. Parentheses are how something can skip the line. So subtraction would normally be last, but since the subtraction is inside parentheses, now it is first. So let's take care of this. -6 minus 11. If you lose 6 of something, and then you lose 11 more, you have lost 17. I'm going to rewrite this in a different color right beneath it. -9 minus 12 times -6 plus 6 times, instead of -6 minus 11, it is now -17. The parentheses can disappear because we took care of the operation signs in there. Don't need the parentheses anymore because nothing is trying to skip the line. Now I see a minus sign, a times sign, a plus sign, and a times sign. So we did the parentheses. I don't see any exponents, so we're done there. Now multiply and divide. Oh, I see some multiplying, so let's multiply. 12 times -6, and then we'll do 6 times -17. M comes before S. M comes before A in PEMDAS. That is why we do multiplying before subtracting and before adding. 12 times -6 is -72. So -9 minus -72 plus, what is 6 times -17? I know it will be negative 72. So instead of writing 6 times -17, I wrote -102. Instead of writing 12 times -6, in its place, I wrote -72. Now I see a minus sign and a plus sign. What do we do first? Adding and subtracting are just as strong as each other. They're the same kind of math. So we do whichever one comes first, and that is the subtraction sign comes first in our number sentence. So now in a new color, let's do -9 minus -72. Then whatever this is, we will add 102 to it. -9 minus -72 is positive 63. When you are subtracting a negative, when you lose a loss, that's the same as gaining. Minusing a negative is the same as plusing. So this is also kind of like -9 plus 72, which makes more sense why it's 63. So 63 plus -102 is what we have left, plus -102, -39. Your numbers on your question will be different, but you can solve them in a very similar way. Question 5. So your numbers will be different, but I think you can solve your question in a very similar way. The first thing I'm going to do is write the expression exactly how I see it. Times -6. And now I'm going to change, or I'm going to replace the letters with the number that the question wants me to replace the letter with. So here I have g equals -9. So I'm going to replace g with -9. So erase g and put -9 in its place. I have 19 plus, in parentheses, 4 minus -9 out of parentheses, exponent of 2, then times -6. But what do I do first? That's right, our map, our PEMDAS map. PEMDAS. First, let's look at parentheses. We do have parentheses. Parentheses are a way math can skip the PEMDAS line. Normally, subtraction would be last. But because subtraction is inside parentheses, it is now first. So let's do 4 minus -9. 4 minus -9, that is positive 13. When you lose a loss, when you subtract a negative, that is the same as adding. So 4 minus -9 is the same as 4 plus 9. So let's rewrite this. 19 plus, now the parentheses can disappear because there is no longer an operation sign in there that needs to skip the line, so the parentheses can disappear. Instead of 4 minus -9, I just wrote the number 13. Now we have a new expression. We finished the parentheses. Awesome. Now I see some exponents right there. 19 plus 13, exponent of 2 times -6. Exponent, that does not mean 3 times 2. That is not what it means. Exponents tell us how many big numbers there are being multiplied together. So it means 13 times 13. There are 2 13s being multiplied together. So what is 13 times 13? 169. Let's rewrite this. So instead of 13 to the power of 2, let's write 169. 19 plus 169 times -6. So we did exponents. Now, do you see any multiplying or dividing? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. So multiply comes before add on PEMDAS. So we multiply first. What is 169 times -6? -1014. So we have 19 plus -1014. And now it's just adding. So plus 19, -995. Oh, lots of steps. Baby steps, maybe, but lots of those made that really tiring. Your numbers will be different than mine, but I think you can solve your problem in a very similar way. -995. See if Mr. Bertram did it right. Yay. Oh. Question 6. First step for question 6 is I'm going to write the expression exactly how I see it. Letter for letter, number for number. Okay. What does it mean when there's a number right next to a parentheses? Nice. It means we times. Good. What does it mean when something is on top of something else? Nice. It means divide. So S divided by, or S on top of 4, that also means S divided by 4. Now, let's replace the letters with the numbers that the problem tells us. R is 9 and S is 16. So I'm going to erase R and put 9 in its place. And I'm going to erase S and put 16 in its place. I have now -3 times, in parentheses, 9 minus 20, outside parentheses, plus 16 divided by 4. But what do I do first? Let's write our map down. P, E, M, D, A, S. First is parentheses. Normally, subtraction would be at the end of our work, but since subtraction is inside parentheses, it skips the line, and now we do this first. So 9 minus 20. You start with 9, then you lose 20. What do you have left? It will be a negative 11. Let's rewrite this. -3 times, instead of 9 minus 20, I will write -11, and the parentheses can disappear because there's no longer an operation sign that's trying to skip the PEMDAS. There's no operation sign in there, so parentheses can disappear. Plus 16 divided by 4. So we did parentheses. There is no exponents. Now we're looking for a multiply or a divide. I see a multiply and I see a divide. So let's multiply and then divide. Multiply and divide both come before addition, so addition will be last. Also, the multiply sign comes before the division sign, so that's why we multiply first. -3 times -11. What is that? -3 times -11 is +33. +33 plus, what is 16 divided by 4? That is 4. So instead of 16 over 4, I'm going to write 4. Now I have 33 plus 4. That is 37. The end of these problems is really nice. But we have to get there first, right? So we multiplied, there was no, we divided, then we added, and there was no subtraction. We are all done. 37. Your numbers will be different, but I'm sure you can solve it in a very similar way as I did. All right, question 7, almost done. Nice work. My first step is going to be to copy the expression I see in the problem exactly how it is. Letter for letter, number for number. What does it mean when there is a number right next to a letter? Nice. It means multiplying. Now, let's replace the letters with the numbers the problem tells us to. When g equals 5. -5. So let's replace g with -5. What is my answer if g is -5? Let's see. What is my answer if h is -7? Let's see. Let's replace h with -7. I have here -5 to the power of 2 minus 6 times -7 plus 17. But what do I do first? Let's write our map down. P, E, M, D, A, S, PEMDAS. I don't see any parentheses, but I do see some exponents. This little tiny baby 2, that means an exponent. Exponents do not mean 5 times -5 times 2. That is not what that means. Exponents tell us how many big numbers there are being multiplied together. how many bases we have. So -5 to the power of 2 means -5 times -5. What is -5 times -5? Positive 25. So let's rewrite this. Positive, instead of writing -5 to the power of 2, I'll write 25. Then copy everything else the same. -6 times -7 plus 17. So I have a minus sign, a times sign, a plus sign. So multiply comes before add, multiply comes before subtract. So we are going to multiply first 6 times -7. That's our next step. What is 6 times -7? -42. So I'm going to copy everything else down exactly the same. 25 minus -42 plus 17. So instead of 6 times -7, I wrote -42. So we multiplied, there's no dividing. Now we have add and subtract. Add and subtract are the same kind of math. They're both as strong, both as important as the other. So whichever comes first in the sentence, that's what we do. Subtract comes before adding in this sentence. So we are going to subtract first. 25 minus -42. When you lose a loss, when you subtract a negative, that is the same as adding. So 25 minus -42 is the same as 25 plus 42. Like the negative and the minus turn into a plus sign. We get 67. 67 plus 17 is, now we're at the end, my favorite part, just adding, oh, it's 84. Brain's getting tired. So we added, we subtracted, we're done. Again, your number might be different. Your numbers might be different than my numbers, but the questions will be very similar. Last question. A car is traveling at a rate of 61 miles per hour for 6 hours. To find the distance the car traveled in 6 hours, use the expression RT, where R is the rate and T is time. So R is rate. So we R times T. Rate, we learned about that like with ratios. So 61 miles per hour is the rate. It's like how fast you're going. And 6 hours is the time. So our rate is 61. Our time is 6. So instead of R, we write 61. Instead of T, we write 6. And we do 61 times 6, which now that my brain is dead from all of that hard math, use the calculator and I get 366. And we are done. Nice substitution question. Your numbers are different, but I think you can solve that question in a very similar way. If you need more help with this homework, please send me a Canvas message. I would love to help you however I can. Good luck. Tough one.